Will James Harden actually remain professional for the Philadelphia 76ers? Kevin Porter Jr. was traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder, but do we feel kind of weird about that? And more trade rumors around Buddy Hield, Malcolm Brogdon, and more in the Wednesday episode of Locked On NBA. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the daily podcast covering everything you want to know about the association. And on Wednesdays, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter.
And filling in for your favorite John Corrales, Locked On Pacers host Tony East here. And we got a busy day, Jake.
Look, the season's like less than a week away. We get some trade rumors. We get more James Harden stuff, trades. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Real
I'm
trade,
excited.
not even a rumor. A trade actually happened.
Like an actual one happened, which is kind of weird, right? Or we feel weird about it.
It's a sucky trade to talk about because it's not a basketball trade.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the second segment here. But of course, thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen today and every day. We're here with a rotating cast of hosts Monday through Friday, breaking down everything you want to know. Biggest news around the league, the trade rumors, the biggest performances of the night. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Share the show as well and become an everydayer by listening Monday through Friday, because we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we are here every Monday through Friday. So let's get right into it, Tony. Shams coming out talking about James Harden and his professionalism, saying he's been professional. He's been professional while he's been there with training camp for the Philadelphia 76ers. So on Wednesdays, we do real or fake. Let's just get it out of the way right now. Real or fake, James Harden is going to be professional this entire season while he's on the Philadelphia 76ers.
I am obviously guessing because I don't know James Harden or his friends or representation, but this reads a lot like his Houston playbook to me, where he's being professional to help his trade value and because he has to show up to actually get to be a free agent next year, to actually serve his contract services, or the Sixers can withhold free agency from him in the CBA, which is crazy. So yeah, be a professional. You know what he's not doing, Jake? Playing in basketball games, which is kind of a key part of this. So it still feels like the play for him to get what he wants, to be professional now. And, you know, this is similar to the Rockets playbook. Don't show up early for camp, show up and then be awesome for a tiny bit and then be completely awful right after being awesome. So given that we've seen Harden do this before, I believe he's being professional, but I believe he's doing it with somewhat nefarious intentions, which almost makes it fake, even though the answer is real.
Yeah, like it's fake, right? Like he hasn't played in a preseason game. Not even that. He hasn't shown up to the preseason games. He's like not even there in the arenas or anything like that, right? It's not like he's there sitting and supporting the team. Like, I don't know. That's kind of being a professional, isn't it? Right? You know, they've said he's scrimmaged. He's done 5-on-5 once over a week ago and hasn't done anything like that since then. That doesn't he's being nice and not causing trouble. And he said not great things about Daryl Morey in like a calm and collected manner, I guess. But it's not that like he is being like a true professional, right? So I think it's kind of fake. Like you said it, he's not playing basketball games. That's what you got to do. I get it's preseason, but I don't know. Like, is this like the calm before the tantrum comes is kind of what I'm feeling. He's like, okay, I tried and now I'm not going to do this anymore.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what he said, but there was that last Houston game where like he clearly gave it nothing and went on the podium after the game, was like, this situation is untenable and like we can't continue on this way. And everybody knew that from before the season, but he just played the final card, which was like, on the record, I'm going to flame these guys and I'm going to clearly not be as good of a basketball player on purpose. And so it's interesting to me that he's played this card before, because I'm intrigued by what it actually does, what the intent is for him in camp, right? It's good for the team. Like the Sixers are probably like, heck yeah, all right, this is not a distraction yet. His on the record stuff he said at practice earlier this week, which I'm surprised he did that, but it was like all stuff he'd already said before and wasn't that problematic. Like that's as professional as you can be in this situation, but it's also as professional as someone can be while saying, yeah, I don't respect my GM at all. I think he's a liar, right? Like that's kind of unprofessional to do it all, but he already had said it before, so it's a little different. So it's weird, like giving him credit for that, if that makes sense.
I mean, it's like nicer than the way he did it. When he did it when he was overseas, it was like one of the funniest things I think we could like have possibly seen. That he was shooting all those ridiculous like segments over there for their TV and everything, where he's like dancing, and then out of nowhere, Daryl Morey is a liar, and you're like, what is happening here? And then he goes back to doing like stupid stuff, and it was pretty funty. I don't know, like how do you think he's going to look once games matter? Like game 1 against, I think they play the Bucks on opening night, like. What version of James Harden do we get?
Well, the bigger question to me is, do we get a version of James Harden, period? But yeah, that's a good question. Like, if he actually plays, what's this going to look like? Because, we've learned over the years with Nick Nurse that like his defenses are pretty aggressive and require kind of a lot of mobility. And that's not really James Harden's game defensively, but he's certainly a talented offensive player. And like, I want to say that first season, or that last season he had the Rockets before he got traded, the first game of the season, he had like 44, 45 points. Like, when he's motivated to get what he wants and show that he's still a good player worth trading for, like, maybe he goes for it. And part of the holdup with the Clippers is it seems like the Clippers are like, why would we up our offer? This dude's on an expiring contract that may not be that good. Well, if he comes out and he's amazing, that certainly changes the calculus. So I think that could be a part of the play for him early.
Yeah, it's it's tough to try and like figure it out, and it sounds like the reporting out there right now, and I think this came from Jake Fisher of Yahoo, was the Clippers aren't upping their offer. They're not putting in one of the players that needs to be included in that. They're not including additional draft compensation. So it seems like they just have to figure this out. Like how do you think Philly's handled it actually?
It's hard. Okay, so to back up what I just said, by the way, the season he got traded from the Rockets to the Nets, game 1 of the season in Portland, 44 points, 17 assists. And then the final game when he powdered his way out against the Lakers, 5 for 16, 16 points. They lost that game by 17. So like fairly strategic, I would argue. I think the Sixers have done about as well as they can, mostly because they are set up to do well without James Harden because of Tyrese Maxey, right? Like they have a team that it's like, oh, we lose our good ball handler. Great. We have another one. And they can fall back on their cap space goals for next year and like not make a ton of transactions. So they're obviously worried about Embiid and what that's going to do for him. You have to be. I think every team with a star player is worried about what that player could think about the moves they make and how it affects them. But at the same time, they haven't like cast him away. They haven't blamed anything on him. They've kind of gone to bat for him, honestly, in their media availabilities. Like that is interesting to me as well, that they would take it that far. And to me, like the best outcome for them is that James Harden eventually just shrugs and says, fine, I'll play for you guys. So maybe them being the bigger man could end up working out for them.
Yeah, I think that's kind of their play, right? Like they know, and look, I love Maxey, over 20 points per game last season, but it's not like he's capable necessarily of doing what James Harden can do. And we saw some vintage James Harden in the playoffs, right? They had that series essentially won until they didn't against the Boston Celtics. And he had 2 40-point games, I think, in that series, and a couple of other ones where he was terrible, but it still shows like flashes of him being the James Harden of old. And that's why you're seeing them kind of play like hardball and not just trade him away for like small pieces, because Tyrese Maxey, as good as he is, I don't think replaces that, though. I'm very curious to see Maxey take a leap this year too, as he's a very good shooter and knows to get the ball to Joel Embiid. So they are relatively okay, but if they get anything out of Harden at this point, they're probably feeling pretty good about it. So we don't expect a James Harden trade right away, but there was a trade in the NBA yesterday, a little bit of a weird one with Kevin Porter Jr. going from the Houston Rockets to the Oklahoma City Thunder. We will talk about that coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On NBA. Before we get to that, though, today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Bird Dogs. I love these and I wear them all the time, and you've got to give them a try. The Bird Dog Stretch Khaki Short, they're slimmer fitting, so they look sculpted. They just make you look good. Whether you're hanging out with your friends, whether you're playing golf or going on a date, you want to have that fitted look, and the Bird Dog Stretch Khaki Short does it. And you don't want those regular shorts that are made of stiff, restricting cotton. And Bird Dogs fixed all of that issue by creating a cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but it stretches, so you get the slim fit, but you don't lose any of the mobility, any of the stretchiness, so you can go about your day, do what you need to do. And as the weather's getting cooler, they've got joggers, they've got pants. I've got a couple of pairs of those as well. I wear them to the office, I wear them to the golf course all the time. I just feel good. I look good when I have them on. Ups the confidence and everything. So if you want to give Bird Dogs a try, go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA or enter promo code LockedOnNBA at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. And thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, coming to y'all covering everything you want to know about the association. Become an everydayer by listening Monday through Friday because we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Tony, this is a weird one. This is like, I'm not like thrilled this happened. We get to talk about it on Locked On NBA, but we need to. But that is the trade of Kevin Porter Jr. from the Houston Rockets to the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder getting 2 second-round picks in the deal. Victor Oladipo going the other way for all of it. How you feeling on this?
It sucks. It
sucks,
just,
right?
It like this. We're talking about sports. Like it's not. Sports is nothing. And what Kevin Porter Jr. is alleged to have do is extremely significant and terrible on a human level. And I had the pleasure of covering Kaiser Gondrzik for a year when she played for the Fever. Like, such an awesome person to get to know. And it's awful what is, again, alleged to have happened to her. And the fact that a team was willing to, I get that they instantly waive him and they'll say it's just for the picks. I would like to impress you to go on a mic and talk about this because, like, you squint and you see the basketball part of it, and you like these people are running a business, but like it just sucks. It's a sport. Like this is stupid. He just should have been cut immediately, and that should have been it. And now it's gone to this, and it just sucks. It just sucks that this is the case.
Yeah, it feels gross, right? Like this is a trade that feels kind of slimy. And again, I'm not faulting them necessarily for doing this move, right? Presti got 2 second-round picks in this. He's been flipping assets around. They have like 22 second-round picks or something is what they have over the next like couple of years. You know, it's a smart basketball move, but it feels for a league that wants to be progressive just the wrong thing. As you said, he should have just been cut by the Rockets, and there shouldn't be some team being like, oh, I'm going to take advantage of this situation to get more draft capital, exactly. Right? Let alone a team that already has tons of second-round picks where it's like, are these two really going to make that big of a difference to them? Probably not. That's where this just feels weird. You know, in some way, you're going to have and I'm not accusing any Thunder fans of doing this, right? But you're going to have people celebrating this move of trading for this guy with all of the things that he's accused about. Because in theory, your team gets some draft picks and that's a good thing. And it's like, I don't know. Like, I guess it's not bad on the surface that he was traded and that they cut him and he's not going to play for them. But it's just like taking advantage or using that opportunity on just like an awful, awful situation in the first place.
The optimist view that I hate to even propose is that it gets him out of the NBA the fastest. Like this was the path that gets him cut the fastest because the Rockets clearly weren't willing to do that, which was already a big deal. But that's not like a good thing. It should have just the second this happened, he's cut. Miles Bridges is still on a team. It's just it's such a stain on the NBA that these teams continue to hold on to these guys who commit awful domestic violence crimes against women. It's horrible. And it's brutal that it becomes especially like a way station for trades, and these minor assets become like celebratory wins for winning these PR moves. Like I get the Thunder are like, yay, we cleared our roster spot and got second-round picks, but like at what cost? It's like it's just so weird and icky to me. Even if people have jobs they have to do, it's icky.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think this is something the NBA needs to look at eventually, and I don't have a solution for this. I'm not giving like constructive criticism or anything here, but with the Miles Bridges situation and how that went, and you saw the Charlotte Hornets like bring him back, the whole press conference and everything, talk about how he's grown and all that, and then it's like, oh wait, look at what's happened here, and should we necessarily have expected anything differently? It even goes back to like Portland, right, when they were handling the introduction of like Chauncey Billups and other things like really poorly, horribly, right? Like the optics of it do matter. I get that it's a business. You're running a team. You have to, especially in a small market like OKC, you need any competitive advantage you can get because you don't have the money rolling in, like the Lakers or the Knicks. But at some point, like where does the morality come into this? and I don't know where that is. I get that, again, all of the things I just said, it being a business and all of that, but at some point, when is like a line get crossed, and when does someone just do something that feels decent?
The line has been crossed.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and it's like the NBA, they're not enabling it, but
somewhat though. Like, are the consequences like bad enough?
Yeah. So the sticky thing, what I was going to say is like there was all this chatter, which was also dumb, but like right after it happened with Kevin Porter Jr., like, well, the Rockets can't waive him right away. They have to wait till he's suspended, so they don't have to pay the salary instead of. It's like, okay, there should be methods to just like get it over with, right? Like, it's dumb that they'd even like, okay, what are our options? Let's think about the CBA. Like, why? No, he did an awful thing. Like, it should just be over. It's like a very big privilege to play a sport professionally and entertain people. Like, it's ridiculous the way this is all handled.
They're waiving him, but he's getting $15+ million this season. Like let's
and
talk
$1
about
million next year.
Yeah, $1 million next year for sure. It's like okay, well, he's out of the league. Yeah, but he still got paid. He probably shouldn't have been paid. Like, that's a big part of it. Like, there needs to be something in there to impact these players on a larger level. That would also help with like a deterrent on it, right? Like, Bridges got his contract, not as big as it was potentially going to be at some point, and who knows what it's going to look like now, but with these contracts being fully guaranteed, it doesn't seem like there's many mechanisms in place to void these in the event of bad behavior. So yeah, cool. He's not going to be in the league, but I don't know. I don't feel great that dude who did all of these awful things is getting that amount of money. And he's just like, all right, whatever. I'm going to take my money and goodbye, everybody, and go play overseas or something like that, where they might not worry about this as much.
It is truly weird and icky, and thankfully over that he is out of the league, because he just.
Do you think he's actually going to be out of the league? They dropped some of the charges.
I've thought about that about players before who make it back in the league. We've talked about one of them in this segment. Yeah, that headline was misleading that came out today, though. One of his multiple charges were dropped. Now, I know you know that, but a lot of people took that too far. So, yes, I don't expect him to be back in the league. Like, not giving the people any credit, but a lot of the ones who do come back in the league after DV charges, like, that's their only history, or at least their most notable history, whereas he has a lot of problematic things in his past. So yeah, I would imagine he's done, but I've been wrong about that many a times before.
So let us know what you think in the comments down below on YouTube. Is this just business as usual and you've got to take any sort of competitive advantage in the NBA, or do you think there need to be stiffer penalties for players like this, and there needs to be some sort of other mechanism, whatever it might be, to kind of resolve issues like this, where you don't celebrate getting a couple of second-round picks going towards another team, and we don't feel like, you can hear it in our voices, right? It just is icky, and we don't love this. So yeah, not an easy answer. Let us know what you think in the comments down below on YouTube. So coming up next, though, we got a bunch more trade rumors because teams are finalizing rosters. Some teams have too many guys. There's a couple names that could still be moved. That's all coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On NBA. Before we get to all that, I'm excited to tell you about FanDuel, because the NBA season's almost here. The NFL season is underway, and America's #1 sportsbook is FanDuel. And right now, if you're a new customer, you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, maybe you want to get in on your favorite teams over under the win projections. You think they're going to have a good season? Bet the over. You think it's bad season, which Pelicans being 1-3 right now has me nervous about. Maybe you take the under, or you want to get in on the game action with the spreads, the player props, the over unders, the same game parlays. Bet a little bit, win a bunch more if you hit. You can do that all over at FanDuel. And so visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season, tip off the NBA season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. We just ask you to please gamble responsibly. And thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday. Become an everydayer. Listen every single day, because we are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I almost said, welcome back to Locked On Pelicans, and just snapped into my normal thing there. So I'm glad I pulled that off. So Tony, Trades don't happen a lot here, but we did have this trade. Maybe that kicks things off a little bit. The Thunder still need to get rid of one player on their roster. There's a couple of names out there that is being reported could be moved. Some obvious, some make a little bit less sense. I want to start with you, though. And one of the names we've known has been on the trade block kind of this whole offseason is Buddy Hield with the Pacers. Give us an update there.
Yeah, as Jake Fisher reported today and has been said by the Pacers prior to that, Buddy Hield unlikely to be traded before the season. Jake Fisher's exact report I'm referring to said few rival executives believe he'll be dealt before the season. Chad Buchanan, the Pacers GM, said, let me get the date right, September 26th. He said, we've had talks to them about an extension. Those talks are at a halt, I'd say right now. That's not to say they're done. We'd like to have Buddy with us. We have no intention of trying to move Buddy, but it's also our job to listen if opportunities come that help us improve the team. So that's kind of like the status quo answer for a GM, but at the same time, I think they clearly like having Buddy Hield. They said, yeah, we offered him an extension. Talks are at a halt now. So not surprising to me to see this reported again. Seems like Buddy Hield will be on the Pacers when the season starts. Talk to me again in February. Then we'll see where this is.
So is there a particular reason you think that there's just not a deal getting done? Is the asking price too high, or is it just like no one really knows what the landscape of the league looks like just yet?
Yeah, I mean, without knowing what the offer is exactly, it's hard to say specifically because the initial reporting from Shams Charania was that Buddy Hield was, or at least his representation was not enthused by the Pacers' extension offer. If you're Buddy Hield, you just saw your teammate Bruce Brown walk into free agency and get more money than you make and a lot of money with some teams' cap space. So he probably thinks he can make a lot more next year. He's one of the best shooters in the NBA. At the same time, Christian Wood and Kelly Oubre get minimums. The new CBA is tough. You either find your right situation or you don't at all. So it's tricky. But I get why he could think another good shooting season, given the landscape of the league, would lead him to quite a bit of money. And another good season would be great for him in that way. So again, without knowing the offer, it's hard to say exactly what he wants or is thinking, but I think he saw what some guys, not just Bruce Brown, but some guys got this summer and thinks, oh, I can make quite a bit of money.
I'd have to look at like cap space around the league to think if that's like a smart move or not, because that kind of dries up and we don't really get free agency like we used to. That's like a heck of a bet, I think, for him, which could be a little bit risky, maybe, you think?
I think his game's going to age really well because, like, athleticism's not really a part of what he does, and his shooting is just insane every freaking year. So, I mean, and basically until he's literally slow, like, he's going to be an effective player. So, I think he'll be fine to be a good player on his next deal. It should make teams happy to pay him, but who's going to do it? Who's going to be the team with space that is lobbing him a ton of money? So, but at the same time, that's also why he could think his best bet is getting traded to a team that can only keep him via bird rights, right? And so that also plays a factor potentially. So there's a lot at play, but I think that given what the Pacers have said and how this is trending, I do not think Hield will be traded before the season.
Now, another name that Jake Fisher mentioned was Malcolm Brogdon, who we expect to be flipped from the Portland Trailblazers. And, former Sixth Man of the Year, that seems like a guy that should be in demand for a number of teams. He's linked to the Houston Rockets, and I think it leads to a more interesting question about the Rockets of, like, they're really trying to go for it, aren't they? They want to be a play-in tournament team, I guess. They don't control their own first-round picks, so why not, right? So I was at first like, what are they doing? And then you remember some of the deals and some of the trades and things like that. And it's like, oh, okay. It's interesting, though, to see what they might end up trying to do and what they could end up doing here. But what do you think about Brogdon going to the Houston Rockets?
That's interesting. I mean, I don't think anyone expects him to be in Portland. I'm surprised he is still with Portland right now, to be honest. But he's apparently said on the record, like, yeah, it'd be cool to stay here and play games and be a vet. And he's a good player, right? He won Sixth Man of the Year last year. Rockets are a good spot, I think. Jalen Green's great. Fred VanVleet's great. Their guard depth below that isn't as solid. So if they're really trying to be good, adding a guy who's an awesome off-ball player and shooter makes a lot of sense. And he can play lots of positions and guard lots of guys because he's taller. So I covered him for a couple of years. I think he'd be a wonderful culture fit there as well. So, good addition for them.
Yeah, I would expect other teams to try and go after him too, right? If you need a shooting, a scoring first kind of guard that can come off the bench, do other things, as you said, good culture guy, right? Good leader on all of that. He's someone that I think makes, I don't know, just like someone go and get him. It feels like it's just weird. No one like jumped on that right away. I guess maybe his contract somewhat scares teams off, but that one was a little bit weird. Any other names that intrigue you in terms of potential like mild trades, mid trades before the start of the season?
I thought that Fisher's inclusion in his report of Davis Bertans was interesting. You know, they got him in that salary dump from the Mavs on draft night. The thing about Bertans that's interesting is like he's good. His salary almost goes away completely next year. But I kind of was wondering if he'd be one of the guys that Thunder would consider cutting, just given the structure of their young team, right? Just to because they've got to cut guaranteed money still before the season. But he's good. He's a good player, and for their team, he's like their best big salary to use in trades. And they eventually the Thunder have to do a big trade, right? So I think
they have to consolidate at some point for something.
What did you mention earlier? They have like over 20 second rounders and like $1 billion. Like it's crazy.
If you look at their like total of draft capital, it's wild.
Right. So someone like Bertans who can play too, like he's actually done well for them in the preseason. Yeah, maybe he does stick to start the year, but as an expiring, you wonder if he's could be moved or if a team could value his shooting and actually want him. So he's definitely a name to keep an eye on, especially as they can figure out how to get the roster down to the legal size. If the offer's there now, why not? Especially because he's playing well in preseason.
Yeah, so they have 15 first-round picks and 22 second-round picks after the deal today.
Wait, for how much? Like of the
over the next 7 years, I think is what it is. So they have
like who
they have
can
more.
You not get with that?
You in theory can get anyone you want, right? Like that's kind of what it is. It's now of those 15 first-round picks, some are protected, so you might not get some of those. I think 9 of them are for sure going to be theirs. So they could get in the mix for anything. Like they're a young team.
Our praise. Today of all days, I don't.
Yeah, you know what? That's fair.
We're tempering this down.
Yeah, screw them here for all of this stuff. Other name there from Jake Fisher was Alec Burks. If someone needs a guard from Detroit, they've got a lot of young talent there. If they're going to play certain guys, if they want to keep Jaden Ivey in the starting role, where does he kind of fit, or does he come off the bench? All of those things I think are kind of big questions, but it basically seems like they're all kind of moves around the edges, right? Like, are you expecting any sort of big blockbuster trade before the start of the season?
Harden's the only one to me that could happen, but I mean, it just seems impossible for the Clippers to have a package that makes sense all of a sudden. So I don't even see that happening. So no, I don't, but I've been wrong about everything all the time. So I don't know.
Well, there you go. If a little deal gets done or a big deal gets done, we're going to cover it here on Locked On NBA because we cover everything around the NBA Monday through Friday. And that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On NBA. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. On Wednesdays, I'm Jake Madison at Noel Jake on Twitter and the host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast.
Tony East at Tony R. East on Twitter, host of Locked On Pacers. Thanks for joining us.
All right, we got Nick Angstad and Pat the Designer tomorrow. Who knows what's going to happen? Start of the regular season's like right around the corner. So thank you for listening to the Locked On NBA podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.